This is the land of the free. Stories of life and liberty in a time of war.
So we are today in the studio of Ukrainska Pravda, one of the oldest online media in Ukraine. And today with me in the studio is Joe Lindsley. And we start a new project. Please remind me, what is the name of our new project?
Well, we changed the name a couple of times, but now we're calling it Land of the Free. And, every American baseball game or football game on a beautiful summer day, we sing the national anthem. And we sing these words, the land of the free and the home of the brave. And that's what I see every single day here in Ukraine. And Alina, we met at a conference in Lviv just a couple weeks ago. We've got a lot done since then. And it was a conference of some of the most interesting volunteers and journalists coming together to figure out how can we be smarter in our strategy for victory. And those over those hours in Lviv, Alina, you and I were talking about there's so many stories we encounter here every single day. As I've traveled the country to Zaporizhzhia, Donbass, everywhere I go, I meet incredible Ukrainians and foreigners here who speak English very well, and they have stories that will make you cry, that will make you inspired. And I can't just keep these to myself. I have my radio show every day, but that's just my voice relaying what I hear. And so together with Ukrainska Pravda, which is such an amazing free Ukrainian publication, I want to hear the history of Pravda from you, but we said, why don't we start this podcast, Land of the Free, to show Americans to make them feel like they're here, to hear these gripping stories of people standing for freedom in many different ways every single day. And I think Americans, we love the self-help genre. We love to, people listen to Joe Rogan and you take an ice bath in the morning. The best ice bath is to listen to the stories of Ukrainians and see what they go through every day and how they can still thrive, how they can still smile, joke, laugh, sing while they're fighting for victory every single day. So, Land of the Free.
Yeah, the previous iteration of the name of our podcast was Ukrainian Freedom Voices. And that's what you will have here. Like, we will invite very inspirational guests who will share their stories. And today we will speak about the freedom of speech, about the media in Ukraine. And actually at the conference we have met, we have discussed that it was 1 year and a half of a big war, of the full-scale invasion, and still we have some issues with foreign medias who call the war like a conflict, who do not know how to transliterate Ukrainian names. And that's why we need to show that we are here, we together, and we need to be an example for our colleagues.
And this, one reason why we thought we changed the name away from Ukrainian Freedom Voices is because these stories are universal. And everything I see here, it's people standing for their family, fighting in the trenches or fighting in so many different ways. For family, for freedom, for every value that Americans and good people around the world love. It's the land of the free, and it applies all over the world. And Ukraine just is right now the place where these battles are happening in a most visceral, clear sense. Alina, if I could ask you, because I want to hear about the story of Pravda, but why, you as a Ukrainian, why did you become a journalist in Ukraine?
Well, that's an interesting question. I didn't think about it because, I was born, and
on Independence Day.
On Independence Day, which is important. Yeah, coincidence? I think not. And I think that when I was at school, I understand that writing is something I can do and something I want to do. So I decided that my life will be connected with this. And when I get older, I understand that there are a lot of stuff which is going on, and people should know about it, and I can tell them. So I decided that to become a journalist is a better way to show people what's really going on. And for now, it's very important if the authorities forbid something, like to go to the front line, to show some new tanks or some vehicles or whatever. It's still, we have the freedom of speech, and mostly working from Kyiv, and from here I can say whatever I want to say and to spread it to whoever I want to spread it. And the story of the Ukrainska Pravda itself started as the story of the media, which was created just because we need to have some response to the infringement of freedom of speech. And in 2000, Georgiy Gongadze and Elena Poliakova has created this media because we feel that something is going wrong. And still, it was 23 years already, we are trying to do our best to keep people informing and to show them what's really going on. Even under the martial law, we make investigations about the corruption in the Ministry of Defense, which was several days ago. And I think that it's really important to do this in this context we live in.
When you make investigations about that corruption, which I've read throughout the full-scale invasion, do you ever get government people coming to you and saying you can't do this, or?
I don't remember that it was like this, but of course they go public and say that, oh, you're a journalist, you're mistaken, that things are not like this, you need to fact check your information more times, or whatever. But of course we understand that the facts we have and the information we have is true, and only if we understand that it's really true, we can post it on our website. So it's really important to us to keep the criteria of independence media, to check the information and to be a reliable source for foreign medias in this time.
And have you seen any of your investigations since February 24th, 2022? Have you seen have these investigations made an impact? Have you seen, corrupt politicians sort of getting their comeuppance as a result of the light that the media shed?
Yes, we see everything. We see that people were fired from their positions, from their posts, they lost their power. However, sometimes our investigation works not as we wanted them to work. For example, one of the last cases when we showed that MPs partying on the different restaurants which are opened after the curfew.
Wow.
And it was filmed by our journalist Mikhailo Tkach. And after that, the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, said that all the restaurants, cafes, and whatever should be closed after 10 o'clock. However, people who live here, they need to go home after that time. They can't buy some food or whatever, but MPs who were going to the restaurants after the curfew still are going to the restaurants after the curfew. So it didn't impact as we wanted it.
It actually hurt the people who need these services, and those who break the rules still find ways to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. That's why we need to continue our work and to show that okay, guys, you have power, but you need to use it better.
You have power, but you need to use it better. And I'd like to hear more of the specific stories that you've been looking into. But I think for Americans, because, there's such a history of, in the 90s in Ukraine, I can't imagine. Everything I see about Kyiv now and all of Ukraine, such a lovely society, clean, safe, strong community. I heard the 90s was extremely dark and difficult as you were prying yourselves away from the grip of Soviet mentality. And so Ukrainska Pravda, the name Pravda means truth, but that was also the name of the Soviet newspapers, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it was propaganda. And so the name of Ukrainska Pravda it seems that it was clearly made in response to almost
Yeah, it was a response to that propaganda newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And when we add the adjective Ukrainska, it means that it's our truth. After... we are not Soviet Union anymore. Mm-hmm. We are Ukraine, and this is our truth. And it's different country with its own language, its own media, its own whatever. So yeah, I didn't remember actually how hard it was during the 19s because I was a child. But still, yes, it was a really hard period of how we realize that now we are an independent country and how we show it to the world. For example, as we have discussed with you earlier, that Ukraine is the only country who has changed its presidents for several times. For example, Russia, Belarus, or Kazakhstan can say that they have this opportunity to change their authorities when they want to change them.
This is an extraordinary, and I had not thought of this until you mentioned it earlier, but out of all of the major former Soviet bloc countries, only Ukraine changes its president. And Ukraine, since 1991, have you had any presidents reelected?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was Kuchma.
In the 90s.
In the 90s, yes. And it was not the best president still. But yeah, he was one who was against the freedom of speech and the protests for the freedom of speech then lead to the protest against those presidents, Leonid Kuchma.
And then so in the entire 2000s, though, every president has served for 5 years, and then Ukrainians kick that person out and vote for another.
Yeah.
And this is totally unique in the ex-Soviet.
I'm not sure that we are the only country who has this, but from our neighbors, like just look at Lukashenko or Putin. That's not an example of democracy.
Exactly, and the exceptions are the Baltic countries, and of course Georgia. So Kuchma was president late 90s, 2000. And you're the founder of Ukrainska Pravda, was born in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Yes.
I don't want to mispronounce his name.
His name is Georgiy Gongadze.
Gongadze.
Yes.
Like version of Gregory.
Gregory, yes.
Georgiy Gongadze. And he started, and I was always captivated by the logo that he chose for Ukrainska Pravda. It's Don Quixote on a horse.
Yes.
Do you know that story? What was he thinking?
Yeah, I think that there are different versions why he has chosen this special logo. But as I understand it, that when you're Don Quixote, you're very small. You're a small human being and you think you can't fight something bigger than you. But the history shows that even a small people can fight big companies, big authorities, and it's in Ukrainian blood, when you understand that you're not satisfied with something, like for example, as it was at the beginning of the Maidan in 2013, people were not satisfied with the decisions which our authorities make. That time, Mykola Azarov, who was our prime minister, I think he decided that we do not need to Euro-integrate Ukraine. We do not need to go to the European Union. We need to continue our work with Russia, Belarus, and all these post-Soviet Union countries. And people in Ukraine were already far from there. Far from those point of Soviet Union. They understand that it's not the way they want to continue their life. And that's why the first Euromaidan started.
And this, could you say, well, it's very important to note that I think it was only 5 months after Ukrainska Pravda was founded that your founder, Gregory
Gongadze, was killed. Yeah, Ukrainska Pravda was founded in April 2000, and he was killed in September already.
And he was found in a forest. Someone had assassinated him.
Yes, and it was very long case because I think that police didn't want to solve it, and still this case is not solved.
And then you had another of your famous journalists who was assassinated as well, it seems.
We had another journalist who is actually Belarusian journalist. He came to Ukraine from Belarus. His name is Pavlo Sheremet. And he was killed in July 2016. It was a car, not accident, but someone mined the car. Mm-hmm. And so it was the car of our also founder, the second founder, Olena Pritula, who was with Grigory Gongadze at the beginning of the story of Ukrainska Pravda. And they were a couple, so when he started driving this car, it just blew up. And it's another unsolved case in the story of Ukrainska Pravda. So it's really dangerous to be a journalist in Ukraine, especially if you work in Ukrainska Pravda.
You say it laughing and smiling, but you have to laugh about these things, I guess, because how many years have you been working with Ukrainska Pravda?
I'm working here 7 years.
7 years. So you were there right after this happened.
Yeah, right after.
And what have you seen that type of? Have you been nervous at all for safety of your team?
Actually, no, because I was very young and very ambitious, and when you start to work on the biggest online media in the country, you didn't think about consequences. Mm-hmm. And when I started to understand what's going on, and I knew that there were some cases, and I understood that, actually, everyone here can be killed. And we made some jokes that special services listen to us all the time, and some stuff like this. And it's also about jokes, but you know that in every joke there is a little bit of truth. So it's hard to be scared of this now, when we are scared about missiles, drones, and whatever can Russia launch at us. So
you can handle a lot more. And I think one thing I've seen, and maybe as you tell the history of Ukrainska Pravda, you had journalists from Georgia, from Belarus. They came here because here they could be free. Yeah, you still face threats from bad actors, but it's because of the people around you. It's because of what Ukrainians did in Maidan that together Ukrainians are not afraid. And that's why you're able to face missiles and rockets and drone attacks, even cheerfully face this. There is this sense of Ukrainians are not afraid. And you put truth and honor and dignity first. The Ukrainska Pravda played a role in the very beginning of the Maidan revolution, right?
Yeah, that's true. One of our journalists who worked on Ukrainska Pravda at that time, Mustafa Nayam, in November 2013, he made a post on Facebook, and he wrote that, guys, we need to stand for what we want. And please take tea, please take some warm clothes, because it's middle of November, it's cold in Ukraine. And go there. We will be standing there and show that we are against all this stuff that our authorities proposed to us. And that's how Euromaidan started. And at that time, Office of Ukrainska Pravda was very close to the Maidan, so people just come there to get some tea, to grab some food, to sit. And it was 24/7 working, how it was then, and then we understood how it was when the full-scale invasion started, and it was the same here.
Do you see a connection, or how would you define the connection between Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and Maidan? I think a lot of people, in America, we don't know even recent history on this. What was the Maidan revolution?
It was the second Maidan, actually, because the first was in 2004, and the second Maidan started in 2013, and people were against Russia, actually, and they want to join European Union, they want to be progressive, and all the stuff they have imagined they will have after joining the European Union. We're still at the point where we are not there, but at that moment, I think that, yes, at that moment, traveling to European Union became visa-free for Ukrainians, and it also meant a lot because people could go abroad to see how it looks like there and to understand what they need to change in their country, so it should look like there. And when we had those second Maidan, I think that the critical moment was when students go to the Independence Square and protesting and showing that they want to continue the way to the good, not to the bad side. And when Yanukovych, it was our president at that moment, decided that he should punish all these people, and he asked police to beat them. And it was the very beginning of something bigger, because when all those fathers and mothers understood that someone beat their children, they also came to Maidan, and it's become much more bigger than before.
They awakened the nation. And when I hear those stories of the secret police, the Berkut as they were called, it's so hard for me to imagine that existed here, because now we're in the full-scale war. And as I travel and I go through checkpoints and I meet many police officers and soldiers, and there's such a kindness. Everyone is sort of treating each other well. Everyone respects each other. If anything, I think the police are more afraid of the people than the other way around.
Yeah, but do you know why this happened? Because we have reforms. We have police reform, which changed a lot, actually. And it was called militia, like it's called in Russia beforehand.
Mm.
And after all the reforms, it's become police. So it's politia. So it sounds even like something you can believe to.
It's there for the polity, for the
Yes.
people, not as some military trying to control.
Yes. It's very different than like when we were watching the protests in Belarus in 2020. It's so different feeling when you understand that you can feel safe with those people, because they are here to protect you, not to beat you or to make something bad with you. Of course, like there is a lot of stuff which should be done, like justice, judicial reform, but we were on a good way before the full-scale invasion started, because now the only thing that we can do is to fight against the evil, which is not inside the country but is outside the country.
You can't have, of course, focus on reforms
Yes.
in the same way. But even then, as you point out, you have investigated corruption here, because that corruption can get in the way of victory. You gave the example of the MPs, partying late and breaking the curfew rule. Is there any other corruption here that you see that gets in the way of victory?
Well, actually, yesterday we had an investigation about the Ministry of Defense have bought jackets for the armed forces of Ukraine, and they were very overpriced. And it was the last investigation which shows that, okay, guys, we see what you are doing, and we are in the middle of the war. You shouldn't do this. You are Ministry of Defense. You should defend. You should do your best to protect your country and your people.
Well, so you published this story.
Yes, it was published on the 25th of August. So, yeah.
And I've seen, we had the big story maybe a month ago, or just a few weeks ago, where President Zelensky dismissed the regional recruitment, the office, I forget what they were called, Viskomat?
Viskomat,
Viskomat. And it was a Soviet-era agency
yes.
that was would recruit conscripts. And President Zelensky a few months ago had said, he wanted to change it and reform it. He wanted guys that had frontline experience to start to run these offices, because they were the guys that were leading the recruitment centers were too disconnected from the real fight, and so he dismissed the regional directors of this unit. And I asked a friend in Ukraine. I said, what did you think about President Zelensky doing this? And my friend said, well, actually, it was because the media and the people first, like President Zelensky, in a democracy, he did what the people wanted.
Yes, it's just a reaction. Yes. Yeah. And that's what we are doing here. Like, step by step, we are trying to get rid of all the Soviet Union rudiments.
Yeah. Wow. I like this idea. The Soviet Union rudiments. Like the little you find in little corners of life, like little leftovers of
yes, that's what we see. What's continuing to exists in our neighbor countries, and they want us to be the same. And that's not what we want. We are different. We have different country, different language, different history, different everything.
And a history of being free, wild Cossacks.
Yeah, I'm from Zaporizhzhia actually, and it's the cradle of Zaporizhzhian Cossacks, and that's why, like, when I was on every history lesson, they repeated us that we were born from the children from those who were very free, and we should be very free on our own. And it was really, really important to learn like this, that when you understand that you can do anything, like you are free, you have the freedom of choice, the freedom of speech, the freedom which is in your veins.
Well, yeah, it's all been through the centuries there. And the Cossacks and everyone in the middle here had to fight off people from the east and the west. And as you mentioned Zaporizhzhia, Zaporizhzhia city, you're from Zaporizhzhia city, right?
Yes.
And that is, very close. Russians already, pretended that they claimed that territory. The front line is not so far from there, to the south. There's currently very intense fighting. And what was the situation the first hours? I want to hear about your situation as a journalist, the first few hours and the first days of the full-scale invasion. But before that, personally, because you're from there, because you have family there, what was it like for you the hours right before the full-scale invasion and as everything unfolded?
Well, before the full-scale invasion, we were waiting for it, actually, because the first information was about that it should start at the 16th of February, and we were waiting then. And when it not happened, we decided that it's all. Then we were waiting for it on the 23rd of February, because it's the den of the Soviet Union army, and Russia loves symbolism, and we thought that they will attack Ukraine on those days, then. And I was just watching Putin's speech, famous, when he tried to teach everyone his history. And then I go to sleep, and I overslept the beginning of war because I didn't wake up. I have very good sleeping skills. And I wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, because my mom called me and told me, Alina, it's war started. And I told you, Mom, it's not war. It's just like martial law. It means that it can be war, but it's not still. And she asked me, did I see some news? And while I was talking to her, I checked what's going on, and I opened Ukrainska Pravda. I don't remember how it was actually, but it was like the war started. And it was red, it was caps lock, and it was like, you understand that your life is changed at this very moment.
Wow.
And I asked my mom what's going on in Zaporizhzhia. She asked that they have heard some explosions, and the situation, like, we were very confused. We didn't know that, we understand, we know that it could happen, but we didn't believe that it could happen. And that's why, especially like people who, like my mom, who lived in Soviet Union, they didn't expect that the country, like where they have so much relatives and friends, and can attack them. And everything changed. Like, for example, my mom started speak Ukrainian.
From that day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And because she was Russian speaking, because we are from the eastern, like southeastern part of Ukraine, where a lot of Russian speaking people. And at that very beginning, she started speak Ukrainian to show that she doesn't want to have something in common with Russians. My dad go to the armed forces like several days after the start of the full-scale invasion, and I come to the office because we had a safe protocol which told us that if you have no, like, your own car, or some transport, and you can't go in safe place. You just need to go to the office, and then we decide what should we do. And I was there like in 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was the time when we decided to launch English version to spread the information as much as possible and to show the truth from the Ukrainian point of view. And we were trying to fight Russian propaganda, which was very loud, and we understand that in this case Ukrainian voices should be louder.
So you had a choice, and you and the team had a choice that morning to the possibility you could escape. You had an ability to leave, and you.
Yes, everybody has that choice. Like you should, like, be safe. You should save your life. And we decided that we need to spread the truth. Of course, like in some time we left from Kiev to the western part of Ukraine because it was safer there, and we had like three different points. So it was very important not to be together. So if some of our offices in exile, in internal exile, will be found and Russians will found us, then other office will continue to do their job and spread information till the end.
Because there were points where it was a very real possibility that Russian troops could be on the streets here.
Yeah, we were scared. We like at that moment you can't imagine what can happen actually. And all these news about that Kiev will fall in 3 days, now we are laughing at it because like it sounds like a joke. But at that very moment we didn't know what to expect.
What has been your scariest moment in these past
war?
18 months so far?
Wow. I think that when I go to Zaporizhzhia and I was just grabbing coffee with my friend, and then we heard missile very close to us. It wasn't air raid alert because like Zaporizhzhia is very close to the front line and they can shell it from S-30, which is like it's now there's no possibility to turn a air raid alert earlier than they shell the city. And after the first explosions, the air raid alert started, and we decided that it's okay. Like they have already sent us all these missiles. What can be wrong? And then they continue to shell Zaporizhzhia, and it was like explosions were on the factory. It was like less than 1 kilometer from us.
Wow.
And we didn't know where the nearest shelter, so we just needed to sit at the bench in the park and waiting.
Did you keep drinking your coffee?
Yeah, sipping coffee, waiting when the Russian attack will be finished.
Does stuff like that, does it get stuck in your dreams? Or
in my dreams, I see only my work. It's like you're dreaming and you understand that misleading headline and you need to change it and you need to make some corrections, and then you wake up and you continue to do that same stuff.
That's the nightmare of editors. You can catch a typo or something as you're falling asleep. It's torture. What has been your most difficult decision or challenge as a journalist during these past 18 months?
I didn't think I had some, because like everyone was so ordinary, because like you understand the circumstances you live in and it's not hard to make decisions. You understand that it's your job to make decisions.
What is there any piece of like Russian disinformation that bothers you the most, that you wish people could really understand is not true?
Oh,
there's a long list.
Well, actually, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I tried to read Russian news because I wanted to understand what's going on there in their heads, and I was too weak for that, you know. I checked several news about biolaboratories and all this stuff, and it was so insane that my brain just told me, please do not do this. Everything that Russia is doing is like very bad things. When you see that foreign media still call the war conflict, or try to keep the standards and give the opportunity to speak to Russians, and it's also like it's always a propaganda. It's not some sane stuff that they can tell us. And there are a lot of media which just spread those propaganda, and I think that it's not okay. They just should stop. It's not both sides. It's the side of victim and the side of aggressor. You shouldn't give the word to aggressor.
Yeah, and they do a lot of this without thinking. I mean, so often I see from very respectable media, and I know the reporters there, they're very courageous, they care about Ukraine, but in the headlines and the stories, it'll say the war in Ukraine, not Russia's war on Ukraine. And they say, well, we can't repeat that every time. But they repeat the war in Ukraine every time. And how hard is it just to add in, okay, whose war is it? Because when you just say that, it sounds like, oh, this is some kind of weird accident, or it's like a tornado or a hurricane. No, it's humans in Russia have decided to do this.
Yeah, they can call them also they. Who they? Nobody knows.
Say who it is. Yeah.
They launched missiles to Ukraine, to Ukrainian cities. Who they? Just name Russians as they are.
Yeah.
They are Russians.
Yeah, you'll see missiles were launched.
Yeah, missiles were launched. No passive constructions.
Completely.
It's an active process.
Yeah, and we know who it is. And you saw this in the week leading up to the NATO summit in Vilnius. All the headlines were about the cluster munitions, which the United States had just agreed to give American cluster munitions to Ukraine. And all the headlines were sort of, Ukraine is using, and the picture was, Ukraine is using this very dangerous, possibly, war crime type of weapon. And none of the most of the stories did not mention that the American munitions are completely different from the Russians. American munitions are actually approved by the Oslo Treaty. Their dud rate is less than 1%. So they don't.
And nobody has mentioned that Russia has used such kind of munitions since day one of the full-scale invasion.
Yeah. And like especially in Kharkiv, in cities, and some stories mention it in the last sentence. But most people, they only see the headline. And so when Ukraine went into the NATO summit, it was with this huge aura of negativity. And it's just it's not, and it comes from people who support Ukraine. Most media said this is awful, but because they're not being very conscientious, these ideas sort of sneak into their stories.
Yeah, because it's stories without a context, and the context is that Russian cluster munition has failure rate up to 60%, and American cluster munition has failure rate 2%, I think, up to 2%.
Up to 2, less than 2, yeah. So it makes
that's a difference, you know.
And that's why we need journalism to explain these things to us. Alina, thank you. I'm very excited about this collaboration and all the people with whom we're going to speak.
I think that our guests will be very interesting. So, because we know a lot of people who help Ukraine since day one, since the full-scale invasion, and since the 2014, actually, so when the hybrid war in Ukraine started. So yeah, we will try to show you such people and try to persuade you that who is the side of good ones and who is not very good.
Yeah, and if you like, as an American, I know we love superhero movies, the Marvel movies. Listen to these stories. It's like watching, it's a real life version of a superhero movie every single day here. Just so much inspiration. So the people at the center of human excellence right now in the year 2023 here in Ukraine. So I'm Joe Lindsley, our team, UkrainianFreedomNews.com, WGN Radio every single day, and now collaborating with the great team of Ukrainska Pravda. Alina Poliakova.
And we see you soon.
Дуже дякую.
Дуже дякую.
Thanks.